Good evening. Thank you all for coming to what is the date today? The 27th of June. June is gone. And how did that happen? Of the Ojai Basin Groundwater Management Agency. And we will call this meeting to order and start with a roll call.
Peter Tilke?
Here.
Director Finch?
Yep.
Director Hages?
Here.
And Chair Baggerly.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here.
And Director Johnston is absent.
He's probably on his way. And there's the main guy right there. Okay, will you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready to begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's see. We'll start item 3, Director announcements, reports, and comments with mutuals. Anything going on?
Not much going on. We still are producing probably 800 to 1,000 gallons a minute out of that canyon. So
Way
who
to
knows
go.
why? Probably the fire has something to do with it.
There's nothing up there to evapotranspirate. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Ojai Water Conservation District,
No meeting.
no meetings, nothing to report. City of Ojai is not here, so he usually doesn't have anything to. Oh no, here comes the guy with the hat. Johnny, is
Sorry, I
it?
had a contingency of people from Colombia to talk about water and fire.
Oh,
I told them I
KBN.
had to cut it short because we were trying to address that. My apologies.
No, okay, well, we're on item 3, and it's up to the city of Ojai to carry the torch from here. Do you have anything to report?
Nothing of great interest, I can't. They did adopt their budget and we have a new city manager, so those are both.
I read
good
that.
points, right?
Good choice, actually. I like Vega a lot.
Well, you guys move quickly.
We do.
If they could.
Casitas
3 minutes.
Municipal Water District, lake level. I have my notes here. You ready, Cece? The lake level is at 44.6% full. We're at stage 3 of the water efficiency and allocation program. The elevation of the lake water is at 505.51 above mean sea level, which puts the storage at 106,194 acre feet stored in the lake. You need it again?
Got it.
Got it, thanks. All right, I also brought you a map of the Ojai System well field and its production values. Cece reminded me that someone here wanted me to give you a short spiel about our well field. And this is about as good as I can do. I did call up our operations manager to find out how they deal with these wells being so close. His answer was they don't. They can run every single well full out with minimal changes due to the cone of depression. Surprised me, but when they need the water, they got to pump it.
Well, given how little most of them pump, that's not that surprising.
That's right.
Russ, can I just ask a question? Compared to this year you said it was 106,194 acre feet. Do you remember what it was last year at this time? Just
No, I don't. I'm sorry. I'd have to look it up, Larry. If you want me to get back to you on that, I'll be glad to do it. Well, maybe not too glad, but I'd do it anyway. Okay, any questions about the well field? Maybe one of these days we can all go out there and have a tour if you'd like to see that.
Great.
Any takers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd go.
Okay, I'll see if I can set that up.
Are they
I'll
all,
walk in.
are they all, Russ, are they all operational?
Gorham, I believe, is still offline, but I'm not positive.
The $1 million one?
Yeah. It had problems. Is your well over here on Orange Street, Road?
My well is right, one of them is right there. It makes the map.
Yeah. Mike Shields said that sometimes when you're pumping over there, the counter depression will affect the mutuals.
My well shuts off often.
Does it?
So it's, yeah. But Davis is on the corner, can just keep powering through.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on. Community Facilities District,
I don't have anything.
thank you. General Manager comments?
Just a brief comment. Last night around 6:30, I received an email from a Greg Alteri from the Department of Water Resources. He wanted to set up a phone call for today to talk about the alternative that we submitted. So I responded this morning because I didn't see it last night. Turned out we couldn't meet today. His schedule was changed, so it looks like either tomorrow or Monday we'll have an opportunity. He said he just wanted to have a short phone call, so I'm not sure what that means. And I did respond to him to tell him, depending on his questions, I may have to have our hydrologist involved in the discussion as well. So, sounds like something's happening, but we're not sure what yet.
Well, it's short, that's good.
Yeah. Well, it's either.
Could be.
Yeah, either we've approved your plan or we didn't approve your plan.
Okay, basin status report. Item 5, Mr. Kerr.
As of the 24th, earlier this week, when we last downloaded the data from the Key Elrod well, the depth to water was 118.94 feet, representing about 61,600 acre feet within the basin at 76% capacity. Now, what's interesting is that the water levels in that well were rising still as we were collecting that data set, which means that we were wrong when we said that by the June meeting of the OBGMA, we'll have had the annual high. This year, the annual high has yet to occur. Part of that is due to, of course, significant precipitation, lack of ET, evapotranspiration in the headwaters,
And the high
and
grades.
continued,
Yeah, right.
continued recharge and loss from San Antonio Creek as it enters the basin. Now, interestingly enough, with all due apologies that will be hopefully, or hopefully not, next month that we have that annual high to report. We'll do it then. But what's interesting is we have started to see a disconnect from the surface flow in San Antonio Creek. It tends to fully infiltrate around Grand Avenue and then pop up again around Soul Park. So we've started mapping that again, that latitude and longitude of daylighting and infiltrating groundwater. And that's important from a standpoint of what the perch system may be contributing to that versus what the production zones are contributing. And what's interesting is that last year and the year before, we saw the same area of exfiltrating groundwater into San Antonio Creek. That is right about the zones of the perched aquifer. And that's what's interesting to me from a standpoint of the disconnect from the production zones to those which are feeding San Antonio Creek directly. The flow seems to be very similar to previous years, but yet we're looking at well over 150 feet of shallower groundwater levels in the production zone, but no increase in exfiltrating groundwater to San Antonio Creek at that leading point. And that leading point of daylighting groundwater is roughly the same latitude and longitude as it was during previous years. So stay tuned as we continue to elucidate that mystery. Conversely, along the Ventura River, we still continue to see flow throughout over that basin and have yet to see that disconnect, which we expect at some point during the summer. Questions?
Any questions?
Historically, what is the latest in the year that it's taken for the thing to peak? Say was it April last year? that it peaked?
It's typically April's to, we've had early June since the times we've been watching it with the high frequency readings that we have. There's some indication of an August high, circa 1998, but that was really based on Mr. Jim Roosh and Sandy Roosh's well, and their writing on the pump house shed data set. So they weren't always collecting the data, and it was variably pumping at times and flowing artesian at others. So it may have been skewed by those data. But it is possible that we could see something as late as August for a peak. We'll see. Time will tell.
Jordan, do you have anything that monitors the upper aquifer, the perched aquifer, or whatever you call the shallow aquifer?
So the shallow, let's say shallower than 210 feet, is monitored in the San Antonio Creek spreading grounds rehabilitation well. So where that well has it's a 210-foot deep casing in the base of the alluvium there, which roughly correlates to that shallow zone. So in that particular well, we see consistently year in and year out, almost regardless of the amount of precipitation, a relatively quick flushing of water coming through with a relatively early season peak and then receding limb of hydrograph. And the orders of magnitude of that increase tends to be relatively consistent. So for example, this year, even though we had a lot of rain, we saw the water level in that particular well jump up 20, 30, 40 feet and then begin to recede, very similar to previous years with any appreciable flow in the creek.
Any other questions? If not, we will move on to item 6, which is public comments. Are there any, I don't have any public comments here in front of me, so if anybody wants to address the board on something that's not on the agenda, now's the time. Seeing no hands, we'll move on to the consent item, which is number 7, approval of the minutes of April 25th, 2019.
Move approval?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please? Cece.
Director Filkey,
Yes.
Director Finch,
Yes.
Director Hages,
Yes.
Director Johnston,
Yes.
Chair Baggerly.
Yes. Action items, the Treasurer's report for April 2019 and May 2019, budget spreadsheet, extraction charges by period. Who's going to make the report on this?
Are there any questions? Going all the way to the extractions, you can see that for the first, for January, February, March. They're down quite a bit. It's understandable because of the time of the year and the weather. But I did send out 40 late notices yesterday for that period.
Late
Late.
notices? Okay.
Not large
Okay.
places.
Okay. Well, we'll hope we will hear from them more timely in the future. Any questions on the financials? Then we'll need a motion to receive and file. If there are no questions.
So does that include the budget actuals? Am I getting ahead?
No, I think that's part of the agenda item.
That's included in the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I don't know if I'm not reading this correctly. The year-to-date total on the hydrologist looks like it's the whole budget. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes.
So is that because it's paid in advance, or that our hydrologist is working for free, or that we got a budget problem?
Probably have a budget problem there. With more work.
Yes, because we still have June, July, August, and September. We
Yeah,
still
yeah.
have 4 months.
That was my, sort of my deduction from that, so, is that going to be a problem? How's it going to be addressed? I presume that there will be 4 more months worth of,
Work to be done.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's my guess as well. Well, maybe this will be addressed in that,
No, that's just compounding it.
the budget that we're gonna have to come up with for next year.
Oh, no, I thought you were, the conjunctive use.
No, no, no. No, we have a budget process. That's item 8B. So we may have to make some adjustments for this year's budget, John?
Well, there's a couple things. One, if you notice, basin model, website, I'm sorry, looking at the wrong thing. GMP and basin model, things of that nature, their annual report, excuse me.
Oh, there's still
There's been
money.
work there. And so some of these charges maybe haven't been classified appropriately. So that would probably lower this number to some degree.
Sure.
To how much, I don't know, but I know Jordan did spend a lot of time on the annual report.
Right.
So that probably would reduce quite a bit for that period he worked and billed in that period. So let's take a look at that first, and then we'll see if we need, I don't know how this board wants to work. My experience has been, we kind of look at the overall budget, and if we're within the expenditures of the bottom line, I don't worry about individual line items quite as much.
Mm-hmm. That was my question, is whether there's going to be a problem or whether the bottom line will cover it.
And let me talk to Jordan and we'll see. I mean, he typically has, looks like maybe $2,000 a month of expenditures, unless he's gonna have some extra work, like we have an item on the agenda tonight. But we'll talk, and we can come back next month and see if there's gonna be a significant amount between now and the end of the budget year.
Okay.
So perhaps the hydrologist should have the basin model and the GMP. I mean, should they kind of be
Rolled in together?
rolled, maybe not rolled entirely together, but subgrouped, or, yeah, something, I don't know how.
That's something to look at.
Because I was looking, I don't know how, it appears we've spent, half the, roughly a little more than half the budget, but we've gone through 8 months. Do the expenditures track pretty closely with the amount of time elapsed in a budget year, or are there some months or quarters where expenses go up or go down?
Depends on the attitude of the state of California, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the activities that we have for each month. And
Mhm.
normally, I know Jordan does the monitoring out in the creek bed and the wells and things of that nature, but like now that we're doing annual reports every year, you're gonna have that expenditure. There's gonna be some follow-up, I'm sure, on the alternative that we're gonna have to spend some money as well.
Well, okay, we haven't updated or done anything new with the model for years.
Right.
So that's money that's available.
Right.
So is the annual report and the GMP. So we're going to have to look at how we're going to budget all those things so that it makes more sense to the board instead of looking at the year-to-date and the money's still there.
Well, there should be basic charges every month that Jordan provides. And then these other items should have been budgeted separately and approved separately. And I think that's the problem. Everything just gets lumped into one category here.
Yeah, we need to go back and look at those billings to see if we can break some of that out.
Okay, yes, I will.
But
Okay.
having just looked at one of the bills intimately, they're gonna have to be, like, which part of, Jordan's gonna have to put, this is basin,
Which line item is?
GMP or
Yeah.
general hydrology or something, because that one I just looked at and signed was, you just lump it to hydrology based on.
Is that all clear?
We'll see if we can recategorize these expenditures.
All right.
Or we
can.
do it going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We still need a motion and a second to receive and file the treasurer's report.
Well, we have a motion from Director Finch. Just don't have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Filkey,
Yes.
Director Finch,
Yes.
Director Hages,
Yes.
Director Johnston.
Yes, with the understanding that we're going to get a report back to explain where we are.
Yeah.
You want to report back with those broken out?
Well, I did not so much broken out, but I was just curious, when I look at the numbers, I say, are we falling behind? Are we going to go beyond our budget? And in which case, what does that mean?
But we are not halfway through, we're 2/3 through.
Correct.
So
We
the
are.
67,000, I mean, in total numbers, it looks good.
Yeah.
Right, and
That
that's,
one line item,
and that's
we're
what I'm
100%,
just
we're
looking for,
102.
saying, yes, things are great, but somebody's going to tell us next month that things are great.
Okay,
What we're supposed to talk about the budget process. One of the steps is to provide a projection for year end, so whatever new information.
That's
we
coming
have.
up, Richard. Did you do the roll call? You did, didn't
I
you?
think
I said yes.
Chair Baggerly,
Yes. Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
did she?
that was everyone.
All right, action item 8B, the budget process. This is for fiscal year 2019, 2020, and we need to set up an ad hoc committee. And we need to have a serious look at the structure of our budget and how we're going to be billed against those budget line items. That's what we just talked about. So who would like?
I've done a lot of them, so I'd be happy to help.
I'm so glad you're going to be happy. Anybody else like to help design a budget and help us get this thing clarified? John, you, of course, you'll be glad
I'll
to
be
help.
involved.
Okay. I'm not looking at anybody.
If Richard needs
When-
help, I'll help
when is-
Richard, but I think he's, yeah, I'll be happy to keep him company.
When are you
Yeah.
trying to get it in by?
Well, it's supposed to be adopted by September 30th or
Yeah.
beginning year of October, so we need a draft very quickly.
And I have a lot of conflicts in July and August, so that's why I'm not.
Yeah, I'm thinking,
I-
I'm thinking
I
we need to
know.
get you at least a preliminary draft in August. And then based upon your comments, try and wrap that up for September unless you want something earlier.
I think we should have it earlier to give the board a couple of shots at
Okay.
it, so, if we can.
Okay?
It's not that hard.
Our
It's
ad
not-
hoc committee is already at work.
Okay. And so we'll need to set a meeting for that.
Okay,
please.
Okay, we don't need an action item on that because the board has the chair has the prerogative of setting up an ad hoc committee. And I just did that. So, conjunctive use planning, item C. We have anything to report?
Well, we did have a meeting on Monday, and I'm sure Director Hages and Jordan have some comments, but we put together some thoughts and ideas. There's a work plan in front of you to help with the planning effort, and that's, I think, a separate item, 9A. But I don't know, did you want to say anything particular, either one of you?
Sure. The conjunctive use.
Isn't it?
It's 8C.
8C.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. So
Okay.
I think it's appropriate to talk about that. The conjunctive use ad hoc committee, which consists of Director Finch, Hages, Mr. Mundy, and myself, have had several meetings to discuss really what thresholds are we looking at which times, and how much extraction should be from the basin versus from deliveries from Casitas, from the lake. And that's important from a standpoint of using the water that we have to its highest and best use, whether it's coming from the ground or from the lake itself. And given the synergy of the Ojai system with the regional wholesaler, Casitas, it's probably more simple in action today than it ever has been during the previous incarnations of the city's water purveyor. The issue has become somewhat more complex because we're now operating in the Sigma era, whereby we have to worry about all of the other undesirable results that could be a result of mismanagement or over extraction or other issues. Not that that's happening here, but what we want to do is come up with a very distinct plan of when is the best time to take the most water from the basin, when is the best time to come up with the most water from the lake to meet the demands of the city and pumpers in the basin. And where we were several months ago was with the spreadsheet analysis, whereby there was certain thresholds of basin highs, basin lows, and how much precipitation was coming in, how much flow was going out via the creeks, and how much water might be extracted. We've kind of distilled that into a couple of different alternatives, and as we've continued to work through this and recognizing that it needed a bit more attention than ad hoc meetings and light spreadsheet analysis, what we did, as requested by the directors, was to prepare this brief proposal to support the conjunctive use planning in a more concrete way. And that's what this item 8C sheet is. It's simply put, it's because this has taken a bit more time than, as we were just discussing, under our hydrogeologist budget, and really couldn't be swept into, or potentially could be, into the GMP or into GSP or Sigma issues within the OBGMA budget. We came up with this $3,600 level of effort that would allow us to fully distill and bake the three alternatives that have been discussed and postulated to date with respect to the conjunctive use planning. So that's where we are, and going forward, happy to answer questions on that.
Any questions on the proposed efforts to support conjunctive use planning?
Jordan, in this, I think you've captured what we were talking about. The only thing that I don't see referenced is kind of a midpoint draft that can be looked at. So before we spend the full $3,600, we agree that you're on the right track.
And I think that's part of the idea of having the ad hoc committee
Okay.
meeting is
Yep.
that we'd present, just
Kind
correct this calendar, but at some point in mid-July, we were going to meet, present what we had for committee review, and then submit to the board in the July meeting.
okay.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to add that I know we don't have a lot of money, but we also don't have a lot of time. And this is a most critical time in Ojai's history as far as water goes. And how we develop this conjunctive use plan, as a result of our discussions in the committee meeting, may be the basis for developing a fair and equitable allocation plan and managing the basin in a much different way than it's been managed in the past. So I think it's important that we pursue this and continue to move forward with it. And we could come up with something that is very feasible as far as developing allocations for the pumpers that they can live with, and allocations that the state board may find attractive. In the event that they have some issue with our alternative plan, I think this shows that we're doing something, and we actually could come up with a plan that works. It's complicated, but our job is going to be, and Jordan's job is going to be, to distill this down to something people can understand. So I think it's going to take some time and effort to do that.
I agree, and thank you for the report. This is an item that we have on the agenda. The work product will be presented to the OBGMA board at the July 25th, 2019 meeting, but we've got to get them some money so they can do that. We need a motion and a second for that effort.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Can you call the roll, please, Cece?
Director Filkey?
Yes.
Director Finch?
Yes.
Director Hages?
Yes.
Director Johnston?
Yes.
Chair Baggerly?
Yes, thank you. Good work, you guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's see, item 8D, groundwater sustainability plan grant proposal solicitation. This one has been pulled from the agenda.
I did want to make a comment, though. We're not going to ask you to take any action on this tonight because we had a discussion at the ad hoc committee meeting about possible grants out there. I did spend some time looking at what was available, and the primary two things that are available is the IRWMP grant money comes out of Prop 1 funds, and you have to go through the IRWMP planning group through the county to get that money, and it's also a 50% match. So, and that's not available. All the applications have already been put in, and they've closed that process. Under the sustainable ground, go ahead.
Closed for the permanent or the budget year?
They've closed it for this round. There was money allocated to each of the counties, and then each of the IRWMP groups in the counties, then people submit projects, and then they can decide which ones they want to
Very
submit to the state.
competitive.
It's competitive, but and it's rather lengthy, quite frankly. The other program that's been out there is the grants for a strategic groundwater management program under the SGMA program. The grants for the first program was 2015, that's long closed. The program that's been active up until now is for 2019, that's already closed to applicants. And the monies, they're talking about awarding grants in this fall. And so there's no opportunity to get into that program. It's also another 50% match. But the state has also put out a solicitation of draft program for 2020 under SGMA. But however, the two things that I've noticed in that is that it appears, again, that's another 50% match program, and it's going to be for projects and not planning efforts. And so and that process isn't gonna move forward until probably sometime next year. So unless I know of anything, that's the two things I've been able to find out.
Well, there's another one. We could set up a GoFundMe account.
So that's all I have to report on that.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item 9, discussion items. The first is the groundwater management plan objectives. Do we have anything on that yet?
This is the carryover item.
Yeah.
John, if you want to address some of these.
Well, I would say if we do a good job on this conjunctive use plan, it'll address most of these.
Good.
Yeah, we really don't have much to report on it tonight. I think the discussion about the ad hoc committee and the additional work Jordan's gonna do is probably our first primary goal to work on right now and get that accomplished.
Which is item 9B, and we've pretty much
We
talked
pretty much
about
discussed that as well, so.
that,
Yeah.
right? So let's move on to 9C, the draft audit. Board members, you have the draft audit in your packet for the years 2017-18 and 2018-19, is that correct?
No, it's 16.
16 and 17.
2017, 2016 and 17,
Yes.
and another draft as well, right? John, you initially said that you had to work on the MD&A, the management discussion and analysis, but
Yeah, but
they're
it
actually in
looks
there.
like it's been pretty much done.
It's
And that's
done.
what I was talking with CC about on Monday. There's a couple things I want to review, though, as part of that, just to make sure that the numbers look correct compared to what the actions the board took at the time.
Sure.
Because there was an increase in the groundwater pump charge.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think that took place, and I'd like to see some language in there that addresses that was done in order to take care of the deficit that we show within this report, because I think that was done in 2017, the groundwater pump charge. That in 2018, the board took an action on the
Wellhead.
wellhead charge. So that's not going to be in this report.
Right.
But I think we need to have at least some discussion to say, well, we knew there was some deficits going on, and the board took an action to address.
How do we append that paragraph?
I'll have to look at it, look at the history. I'll write something. I'll send it to the auditor and see if they're comfortable with that. We're not asking you to approve this tonight.
No, it's draft.
It's draft. So let us
Okay.
get. It's probably not going to be more than a couple sentences. Be my guess.
And I would like to make a little comment about the independent auditor's report on internal control. For small agencies like the OBGMA, it only has one staff member, two staff members, I take that back. We got John and CC. It's very difficult to have enough people handling financial things according to generally accepted, what's that phrase?
Generally accepted accounting
Principles, yeah. So we're not the only small agency that gets a letter like this saying that it's not a material misstatement, it's the other thing, a lesser
Weakness.
weakness, yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Even the sanitary district gets a letter like that because we don't have enough staff to follow all of their rules. But nevertheless, this draft audit received a clean bill of health so far. So with
Well,
that, we'll
If you don't mind, I'd like to, these are material weaknesses, and you're right. An agency this small can't comply 100% with all of these. The other thing is this thing's 2 years old almost, so it's kind of, doesn't matter anymore. But the internal control issue is one that I asked about several months ago and really have had no response. To be honest, we go through these bills, we have no idea what we're approving. It's just a list. It's just like the groundwater hydrology and the differences in the work that Jordan's done. We have no idea what those charges are for. And the problem with a small agency is we don't have 5 accountants and a lot of people to go through all of this. But it's unfair to put that kind of responsibility on one person. That's Cece. Cece makes a mistake, it's on her. And in my it's always been kind of a standard in public administration that you set up a control system so that no 2 people can conspire to take funds from the organization. And that's kind of a test, so that if that means a lot of eyes have to look at everything, so they share the responsibility across the board. Now, I've managed districts almost as small as this. We had 3 people, and we had a very robust control system. But the board had to participate in that because there weren't obviously enough employees to do that. And I think it's not that difficult to set it up. We only meet once a month. There are simple things that we can do. For example, you know, a question about the hydrologist fees. You include the invoice in the packet, and so we can see exactly what the charges are for. And when you develop the budget, all of those items are in the budget, so the board can say, okay, that was in the budget. You have the ability to look at all of that. Board members can even be authorized to sign the check so that the staff isn't, you know, it isn't their neck on the line whenever we're spending money. So it's not that difficult. I don't think we need a CPA. I think that's we don't have that kind of a accounting system that's that complicated, that requires capital depreciation and all that kind of stuff. But the controls, I think, are important, not just for us, but for the public, because I feel very uncomfortable since I've been on here approving some of these expenditures and not really understanding what they are. And I'm new, but I think most of you are new too, so you probably don't know what they all are either.
I'm getting older by the year. I know. I'm getting older by the year.
But I don't think it's a difficult thing to set up. It makes the agenda packet a little thicker. A couple of board members may have to hang around for a few minutes after the board meeting and sign checks, but it sets a system up that's very transparent, and we don't have to worry about that.
That's really good, Richard. I'm glad you brought it up. I think that's going to be part of your budget ad hoc committee responsibilities, and I hope you'll help us set that up.
Yeah, well, I'd be happy to. The budget is the key, and once you have a detailed enough budget, the other stuff kind of falls in line. So.
Well, the other thing is we need to make sure that where do we do our banking?
Bank of the Sierra.
Bank of the Sierra. They need to give us the paperwork for everybody to sign for, so we have everybody is available for signing checks or those other things.
Yeah, we should set up a formal policy,
Right.
and we can do that.
All right, thank you. That's really great, Richard. Anything else on the audit? We'll move on to item. Yeah. go ahead.
How much did this audit cost?
It's, I think it's like 6,700 for 2 years.
For
That's
2
not
years?
bad.
No, it's not bad.
Well, the only problem I have is I can understand only doing it every 2 years, but we got to make sure we do it in a more timely manner, because this stuff is so old, it's irrelevant, so.
I agree. And the auditor's really apologetic, and she had been sick for a lot of the time, but she's back now, so.
Well, if we consider a contract, a multi-year contract with an auditor, once they're used to how we operate and what level of effort it really takes to do this, which isn't much, we might get a better deal.
We can do it for 5 years,
Yeah, we,
Do
a
what?
5-year contract.
Yeah.
well, we used to do an annual, and then we had it changed with the Board of Supervisors.
I'm just referring to the auditor that you can have for 5 years. The state makes your change after 5 years.
Oh, we have to get a new auditor,
Yes,
and the price will go up.
it usually does. We'll look into it, right?
Is that a state law, or is that just the standard of the industry?
It's state law.
Does that apply to
um,
all jurisdictions?
Pardon?
Does that apply to all jurisdictions, or just this?
Every last one.
Oh.
Okay,
That's good to
the
know.
last item we have is the City of Ventura amended cross complaint, Ventura River. There is not anything really to report legally. I can tell you that mediation meetings are ongoing, and that's all I can tell you. There isn't anything new.
And Russ, that's because the discussions are confidential?
Yes.
Right. And one thing that the board should be aware of is that, reporting on these issues is a little bit difficult. We feel handicapped because this agency is not a party to the litigation, so it requires, making phone calls and trying to speak with attorneys who then feel like, well, I can tell you a little bit about what's going on generally, but I can't really tell you the specifics of, what's actually being discussed. And so something for the board to consider for the future is whether or not the board would like to intervene in the lawsuit and then have a seat at the table. And it may be premature to do that now, but at some point, if the agency is going to play a role in the ultimate solution, then it would be good to have a seat at the table.
I have a question. Okay. I have a question for the board. If we don't have anything to report each month or can't report, do you want to continue to have this on the agenda?
No. I get regular reports because in closed session from our attorneys who are part of the mediation. But I can't tell you anything. So it's really sort of useless. I could talk to him afterwards because it would be privileged.
So I might suggest that it only be agendized if there's something important, there's some milestone reached in the litigation that is public information and is something that would be important for the board and the public to know about.
The only thing I can getting involved in the case would probably fall under the defense group concept of our pumpers, and I don't know if this agency would really want to get that involved. Are you a member of a defense group? Yeah. See, everybody's pretty lawyered up already.
I don't see, I mean, if you want to talk about the budget getting shot, that'll shoot the budget real quick. We are going to be a part of the solution.
Yes.
Ultimately. And I don't know that the seat at the table will get us anything different because the dogs are going to be fighting. I think eventually they'll come to us as kind of, referee's the wrong word. Gatekeeper might be a little closer. Eventually we're going to be brought into it and probably have some kind of, water master, gatekeeper type role or ultimately. But I don't know that getting the seat at the table for what it would cost would give us any value.
Well, Jim, I think we'll keep an eye on things, and if it becomes a necessity, we can discuss it again.
I mean, we could leave it on the agenda, and then each month we just say nothing to discuss.
I think the one thing that may be very real is here down the future is there's going to be 5 hydrologists or 6 hydrologists, I don't know, whatever. And they're all going to be basing it off of our data and what Jordan has compiled over the years. And that might be the time when we get a seat at the table, when all the hydrologists and maybe our hydrologist is in those discussions and when the technical group gets to working. I think that might be, and our data's out there for public thing anyway, but that would be the one time when I would think maybe there is a very real thing where we get involved with the technical working group.
I wish I could tell you what's going on, but I can't. Let's get off this subject.
It's just killing Russ not to be able to talk.
Okay. Let's see. That was our last item. We're going to adjourn at 5:51.
Gotta keep tempting Russ, you know? You might break down.
I know, that's what I was starting to think. Thumbing through.